Enthusiastic Navia will blast down your enemies, and today I'm here to tell you how to build her best. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. So what artifacts does this spunky mafia leader desire? None other than 4-piece nighttime whispers in the echoing woods. You see, this set was perfectly tailor-made for her. The 2 pieces attack percent is absolutely wonderful, and the 4-piece provides her with all the geo damage bonus that she could ever want. It's a splendid set, and it also works across all of her teams, not requiring any HP loss-based mechanics in order to function. Definitely her most versatile set across all of her playstyles, therefore I would recommend it the most. However, otherwise, you can always go for the tried and true option of 4-piece mayonnaise hunters. It's pretty obvious why this is good. A whole lot of free crit rate. You see, because Lady Farina is one of Navia's absolute best partners in crime, you're able to easily access HP loss-based mechanics in her teams in order to make full use out of this set. However, considering that Navia has many other team options, this does indeed restrict you to using Farina in her teams. So if that doesn't sound particularly appealing to you, then you may prefer the flexibility that Nighttime Whispers offers. 2-piece mix and match sets include 2-piece skill percent, geo percent, and attack percent. As for Navia's main stats, simple. Go for attack percent, geo percent, crit percent. She uses a very standard setup considering that she's a regular crit DPS. And considering how many external attack sources she gets, such as 2-piece Nighttime Whispers or her A4, you'd ideally want to go for a geo percent goblet over an attack percent one. As for Navia's stat goals, simple. Go for 2.6k attack on a 5-star weapon, 2.4k attack on a 4-star weapon, 80 to 160 crit on Verdict with Nighttime Whispers, 60 to 190 on Verdict with Mayo Hunters, 60 to 140 on a non-crit weapon, and 45 to 190 on a non-crit weapon with Mayo Hunters. A big reason as to why she wants so much attack is because it's very easy to get that much attack. Her A4 gives her a lot whenever it's fully stacked. Now I will mention, you will only see the effects of her A4 take place if Navia is actually within your team, so make sure that whenever you're evaluating whether your Navia has enough attack or not, have her in your actual party so that you can see whether her stat matches the ones on screen. And the crit values are all very achievable relative to whether you're using a crit weapon or if you're using 4-piece hunters. While Hunters does indeed yield the best damage results for Navia, it kinda sucks that you're tied to using Farina within her teams, especially considering that Lady Farina is quite the contested teammate. So ideally, I would honestly recommend that you go for nighttime, unless you're 100% certain that you're not going to be removing Lady Farina from Navia's teams anytime soon. And having enough ER for her would be ideal, considering how many crystal shrapnel stacks she can generate from her burst. It's a very handy tool that you would ideally have on hand. Yet what weapons shall this mafia leader use to exact justice upon the lands? None other than her signature weapon, Verdict. This weapon is of course tailor-made for her. That is an insane amount of base attack that works very well with her, especially whenever you consider that her A4 also gives her so much free attack percent. So you are going to be swimming in attack with this option. The crit rate is very nice when you consider that she ascends with crit damage, and of course, the passive works with her wonderfully, providing her even more freaking attack. Not to mention the wonderful skill damage percent, which is splendid when you consider that the main meat of her kit is dealt through skill damage. Definitely a wonderful weapon. However, it is far from needed. If you're a Battle Pass player, then honestly, Verdict is one of the worst weapons that you could pull for, because a highly refined Serpent Spine is not that much worse than Verdict at full stacks. In fact, it is only a few % worse. It's still impressive even at R1, and at R5, it is absolutely excellent. So if you're somebody that buys Battle Pass, then this is an incredible choice. The crit stick is excellent, and even though you do get lower base attack, the passive is just splendid for her. The main downside is the fact that it's less consistent, considering that you're able to lose stacks of it, not to mention having to wait at the start of every chamber in order to build up Serpent Spine stacks. But if you're willing to put up with those inconveniences, then it's really not that much worse than Verdict, and is a splendid choice on the whole. Moika's weapon also ends up being absolutely incredible for her, namely because it's an absolutely incredible stat stick. Providing so much base attack and having skill damage when it's passive is absolutely great. However, you're not able to access the full extent of the weapon due to Navia having no Night Soul based effects. Nevertheless, it still remains as her second best option. And yes, general crit stick weapons such as Redhorn Stone Thresher and other crit stick claymores will work just fine on her. Wolf's Gravestone and the Unforged are also excellent if you want a big attack stick, but generally, you want to go for the crit stick options if you have them available. And in terms of free-to-play friendly options, a highly refined Tidal Shadow is going to be your best bet if you're completely free to play with nothing to begin with. It provides a crud ton of attack percent, and I wouldn't worry too much about the healing part of it, because at the end of the day, most teams that you're going to play her in are going to have a healer anyway. Especially in Lady Farina teams where you naturally have a healer baked in for the sake of fanfare shenanigans. Earthshaker works fine as well, especially because it has skill percent in the passive, but honestly, it doesn't really provide much else. and the high attack that you get from Tidal Shadow is actually preferable, so while it is indeed a good free-to-play friendly option for her, you'd rather use Tidal Shadow if you can. Honestly, if the weapon has some components of attack percent, skill percent, and even crit percent, then it's gonna work pretty nicely on Navia. I really would emphasize getting Serpent Spine if you're a Battle Pass player and skipping out on Verdict unless you really like the drip. However, it's still a very consistent weapon on her, which can still make it worth getting if you're a really dedicated Navia main. But otherwise, I wouldn't really be gunning after this in particular. You'll be clearing content just fine on other crit stick options at the end of the day. Yet who shall be joining the Spina di Rosula? Well, none other than Navia's tried and true hypercarry team. This is a pretty standard team comp setup. You use either Shilonen or Kachina for 4-piece Intercity, Bennett for his attack buffs, and then Lady Farina for her damage bonus percent buffs, and you get yourself a very strong GO DPS team. It works wonderfully across all content that you're able to apply Navia to, and also allows for the use of mayonnaise hunters considering that Lady Farina's around. It's an absolute classic, and it still holds up even now, and thanks to Notline giving us Kachina and Shilonen, you're able to play an even stronger Geo Hyper team than before. Example teams include Navia, Shilonen, Bennett, Lady Farina. Lady with a really cool hat, Kachina, Bennett, Lady Farina again. High investment double pyro is also a wonderful option, especially if you want to free up your Lady Farina for another team, or if you just would rather use Moika instead. Shilonen being in the team means that the fighting spirit requirement for Moika is covered, not to mention how the motorcyclist can also provide some damage dealt increase via her A4. Her personal damage is also really freaking high, so it almost feels like it plays as a dual carry team, considering that you're taking advantage of both Moika's insane personal damage and Navia's quickfire nukes. It's a fantastic team that's honestly able to perform on par with her regular hyper teams if it's a team that you're interested in. Example teams include Navia, DJ Cat, Bennett, Moika. Then we of course must address how free-to-play friendly this character is, because she has access to a wonderful 4-star only team that honestly performs quite well considering how low cost it is. That would be your team of Kachina, Bennett, and Xiangling. Yep, that's right, a simple double pyro core using Kachina. You build Kachina here on 4-piece Intercity with a Favonius Lance, then the other two are just the usual double pyro core, and it honestly works really well. It's a budget version of the regular double pyro team. You can play Navia on Earthshaker here, but honestly you would rather use Tidal Shadow anyway. Considering how cheap it is, it's very effective, and thus makes Navia one of the most accessible DPSs out there. So if you're a free-to-play or somebody that's just starting out, then you might want to take a look at this particular team. Example teams include Woman with an Umbrella, Kachina, Bennett, Xiangling. Plunge is also an absolutely excellent option for her. Now you do have to use Kachina over Shilonen, considering that you need at least 2 Pyro, Hydro, Electro, and Cryo teammates in order for Shilonen's Red Shred to work. However, that aside, it's still a very strong team that you're able to play to this day, and is a wonderful way to use Xianyun very creatively. It's strong while being very cost-effective in terms of teammates, so I can still see a reality in which people will be playing this, even when we have access to hyper teams. After all, it frees up Bennett, it frees up Moika, and it also frees up Shilonen. You of course get to benefit from Navia's plunging Geo normals, while having fanfare perfectly covered for by Xianyun. It's honestly a really fun team that I would recommend giving a spin. Example teams include Navia, Kachina, Lady Farina, Xianyun. Noelle Navia teams are also another really fun comp that I totally recommend. You can either build Noelle around her personal damage, or just build her to be a straight up driver in order to use her burst so that she can heal for fanfare. Then you can have Navia swap in from off field, do your nukes, then swap off again after doing her normal attack cycle. And it works very smoothly because Noelle maintains her burst state even after swapping off. It's honestly one of the most fun ways to play the double Hydra team, and I really do recommend that you give it a shot. Example teams include Honorary Victoria Housekeeping member Noelle, Yolan, Lady Farina, and of course, Navia. Chiori does indeed work with Navia, but I honestly don't recommend it when you can either use 4-piece Intercity Kachina or Shilonen and get way better results. But yes, you can in fact use Chiori plus Navia and get good results out of it, especially if you have a C1 Chiori, as that removes any restrictions she has related to Construct. But considering the options that we have at our disposal these days, I wouldn't really go out of your way to invest into a Chiori just for Navia in particular. Example teams include Vespina Leader, the cutting edge of fashion, Lady Farina, and the Bird Lady. Gun Woman, Fashion Woman, Unlucky Kid, and Lady Farina once again. If you so choose, you can even opt to play Navia as a sub-DPS for many different main DPSs. Now is this the most optimal way to play her? Honestly, no, not at all, but it is a fun way that you're able to use her. And honestly, the performance isn't all that bad. You're able to do it with quite a wide array of DPSs too, so honestly, it's not a bad way to play around with her. It also just spells good news for her overall shelf life value, seeing as she's able to slot into so many teams so effortlessly. Example teams include Settle Down, Lady Farina, DJ Cat, Navia, Everlasting as the Moon, Bennett, Shilonen, Navia, Linny, Bennett, the Cat, The Mafia Lady. Yet how does this Mafia Lady work? Well, her normal attacks will deal up to 4 simple physical strikes. Nothing much else to add here. As for her skill, well, it has both a tap and a hold. The tap will simply launch off some bullet nukes, whereas her hold will let you aim those bullet nukes. It has a stacking system. You're able to stack up to 6 bullets. 3 of them are going to be transparent, and the other 3 are going to be more solid and golden. The first 3 are going to allow you to shoot more bullets depending on how many you have. You gain them from picking up crystallized shards. If you have all 3, then you're going to shoot off a max of 11 bullets at a time. Her skill attack is going to deal 15% more damage for each extra bullet that you get on top of those other 3, which turn them into the solid gold ones. This number is fixed, so if you manage to get all 3 of them golden, then that is a 45% damage dealt increase to your skill. As for Navia's burst, she'll unleash some crazy cannons, and then launch a bunch of geo bullets down on the enemies. Whenever a geo bullet hits an enemy, she gains one of those skill charges. This has a fixed cooldown of 2.4 seconds. As for Navia's Ascension passives, simple. Her A1 is what turns her normal attacks into geo normals after using her skill. Very, very nice. It also increases the damage of all of her normal-based abilities. As for her A4, you're gonna get a crud ton of free attack for simply just building her teams the way that you would normally build them. The only time you don't get the full 40% is when you're playing plunge teams, because Xianyun is Animo, who doesn't grant the extra 20%. But otherwise, in all of her other teams, you are indeed going to max out the full 40% attack buff, which is why the stat goals for her attack are so high. As for Navia's talent priority, simple, go for this. Her skill is the main meat of her kit no matter what. No matter how you're playing her, it is going to be her main gimmick. Always. So you absolutely want to prioritize that. Then you certainly want to level up her normal attacks, because they're capable of dealing quite a good amount of damage as well. Her ult is last priority. The main reason her ult is useful is because of the crystal shrapnel stacks it gives you, not so much for the damage it does, but it's still worth leveling anyway. Do you want to fund the Spina di Rosula? Then let's talk Constellations. Navia's C1 really isn't that useful. Sure, she does want ER, and it's nice to have a little bit less ER requirements, but this really isn't all that good. Certainly don't go out of your way for it. Her C2 is indeed a little better, but compared to her Fontanian peers, it's honestly not that high value for a C2. She'll certainly be hitting harder, and it does benefit her skill, but really, I wouldn't recommend it all that much. It's a damage increase, sure, but it's really not that crazy. Honestly, I would sit this C2 out unless you're a big Navia fan. It's not bad by any means, but for a C2 by today's standards, kind of underwhelming. Her C3 is excellent considering that her skill is the main meat of her kit, but once again, you kind of have to trudge through 2 made constellations in order to get here, so I wouldn't really prioritize it. Her C4 isn't bad by any means. Geo Reshred is very nice, but it's kind of underwhelming for a C4, especially in a day and age where we have Shilunen on our sides. So once again, don't go for it on its own. This is just something you're picking up on the way to C6 really. +3 to her burst really doesn't matter much. I'm not sure why they didn't just go +3 to her normal attack, but I guess this was before the time where they started doing that. Because once again, the damage of her burst is not particularly why you're using that burst. Her C6 is strong, I will say that much. Stacking all of her previous Constellations buffs on top of this C6 does indeed result in quite the strong character. She is a very, very comfortable C6 to play, and if you're somebody that wants a C6 that doesn't really require much thought in terms of execution, then I do actually really recommend her. She's fun to speedrun with, and honestly, she gets the job done very, very quickly. So honestly, it's a very stress-free playstyle, but would I call it one of the strongest C6s in the game? It feels strong for sure, but I do think it's more worth investing into a not on C6 these days. Or if you are going to go for a Fontanian C6, then I think Arlecchino or Settle Down are better choices. But it's not a bad C6 by any means. If you want it, go for it. I'd say it's decent enough in the whale meta, not a priority by any means. Honestly, when it comes to Navia's high Primogen based investment, the best thing you can do for her is either getting her Lady Farina copies or Moeka copies. Because her own Constellations, while they're not bad, they're certainly underwhelming relative to their cost, and I would much rather invest those into the Archon cons, considering that those benefit your entire account while doing a whole lot more for Navia compared to what her own Constellations do for her. Does this make her a free-to-play friendly goddess? Absolutely. But does it make her a little bit annoying for those of you who have an extra buck to spare? Yeah. Of course, don't get me wrong, her Constellations aren't bad by any means, but they are certainly underwhelming. Now, if you insist on still getting Constellations after you've gotten all of those Archon copies, then I would say stop at C2, otherwise go all the way to C6. And sure, you can push it and go for C3 if you are already at C2. And yes, if you got double Navia in a 10 pull, then her C2 is indeed worth it at that point because you already have C1. And as for Verdict, if you're a sworn diehard free-to-play that absolutely refuses Battle Pass, then yes, it's worth it. But if you're fine with buying Battle Pass, then just get Serpent Spine, man. Honestly, I still really like Navia's playstyle. I feel like she's aged excellently. I always knew that getting her main dedicated Geo support was going to absolutely bolster her power level, and I still think she performs very consistently to this day. She's certainly not a must-have by any means, but I cannot deny that her performance is more than satisfactory. And this character is just awesome, man. It is very hard not to love her. But what do you think about the Spina di Rosul's leader? Let me know down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, I have a ZZZ second channel. Head on over and subscribe if you're interested in some fun, silly ZZZ content. I'd also like to mention that I stream on Twitch. I usually stream once a week every week on Saturdays, starting from free PMK time. Come along so we can play Wuthering Waves, ZZZ, and do some other fun stuff together. Hopefully this video was able to get your Navia blasting her enemies away. This has been Juice, signing out, and remember the best part about playing Navia is that she has a really cool hat.